Hey everybody, welcome to your 30-second laughing session brought to you by The Laughing Cow. Ready to laugh? In 3, 2, 1, and... Okay! Great job, everybody! Now unpeel a wedge of the Laughing Cow light spreadable cheese, a delicious snack with 2 grams of protein and 25 calories per wedge. Feels good to have a cow, huh?
For the News and Observer, I'm Dawn Vaughan, Capitol Bureau Chief and host of Under the Dome. You're listening to our latest episode for the week of March 10th, 2025. I'm joined today by my politics team colleagues, Kyle Ingram and Avi Bajpai. I feel like we're starting to say this every week, but it's been another crazy busy week at the General Assembly. Things have ramped up. We are in this season. This week, we've got Senate votes on the Attorney General Powers Bill, expecting votes on the K-12 DEI bill. We have State of the State on Wednesday. We have, a lot going on. So, immigration bills are moving.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Let's start with what we know, with the caveat that, of course, they can change it like once we're, in the room in the Senate. But the Senate is expected to vote on Tuesday on this Attorney General Powers Bill, which they added after they were already in session on, I feel like that was Wednesday.
One of these days.
Yeah, every day feels like 10
Second
days.
half of the week.
Yeah. So Attorney General Powers Bill, Avi, you've been covering this and all things Attorney General. What do people need to know about what's going to happen this week and what the potential is?
So this is the bill that we've been following for a couple of weeks now. It's really simple, very straightforward, really just half a page long. It just says that the Attorney General cannot participate in any kind of legal action to challenge the president's executive orders. The context here is that, President Trump has signed more than 70 executive orders. He's been signing executive orders every single day almost. It's been a major focus for him. And Democratic attorneys general around the country have been challenging these EOs in court. Our Attorney General here, Jeff Jackson, has challenged 4 of the administration's policies, and Republicans don't think that he should be spending time doing that. So they want to block him.
How's this different than the bill that they passed with Powers before this session?
So that had a number of limits on his powers, but the main thing as it pertained to legal challenges was focused on state laws passed by the legislature. So the Republicans were basically saying that the AG can't seek to invalidate any law that's been passed by Republicans, by the legislature. This is expanding it to presidential executive orders.
So is this a bigger deal or just different, really?
It's different. I mean, I think it's a big deal because it's the court challenges are one of the few kind of mechanisms by which Democrats around the country have really been able to resist, protest, kind of throw roadblocks into the Trump administration's agenda because the Democrats in Congress haven't been able to do too much. So it's really been a court fight for the first month or first 5-6 weeks of the administration. So, I mean, it doesn't mean that there are not going to be challenges because Jeff Jackson is one of, I believe, 23 Democratic attorneys general. So if one of them suddenly is not able to file challenges, it doesn't mean the other 22 are going to stop. They're going to continue.
I feel like we're very much in the legislative branch era as far as the state government goes. And of course, at the federal, it's executive branch era. And then judicial branch era is coming soon with all of this, just with the fights in courts. Another bill, Kyle, you wrote about right when it was filed, Senate Leader Phil Berger has put out another, this K-12 DEI bill. So tell people what's in this bill. This is a different DEI bill than the state agency DEI.
Yeah, this is the second attempt that Republicans are making this session to target diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. This one would ban them in K-12 schools. So it sort of sets out this list of concepts that would be banned from any sort of curricula or programs or things like that. And these list of concepts are actually pretty familiar. They came from a few years ago in a anti-critical race theory bill. So they've just sort of changed the term they're using. That one didn't end up passing. But yeah, some of these concepts are like they don't want to teach the idea that the United States is inherently racist, or they don't want to teach the idea that any race or gender is inherently oppressive to another race or gender, any sort of thing like that. And this time they are just sort of repackaging it from what they tried a few years ago.
Yeah, I feel like I was like, is this 2021 again? Because when I was looking through that bill, I thought, wait a minute, this is very familiar. And that other bill, it was described by Republicans as they fundraised as an anti-CRT bill, but the bill never mentioned critical race theory at all. That was just the general way of describing what you're against that talks about race. And that was really like pushed by the first Black lieutenant governor of North Carolina, Mark Robinson, long before he ran for governor and lost. So he's not on the scene anymore now, but that push from years ago is where we're 4 years later and different version of it. So like anything in politics, different versions of the same things keep showing up over time. Avi and I had a story that published this past week, which if you haven't read it yet, you should, newsobserver.com, about how the session is really played out so far. And as we're working on this, of course, everything changes in like 10 minutes. Like you go to a Senate session and you think you're writing about one bill, and then suddenly, there's another bill and they pass it. And so really what our look was if you haven't read, every single one of our stories as things are gone, or other people's coverage as the session started, was really the look at what are these big themes that we have so far. Avi, why don't you talk about the sections of the story that you had written about, like a theme, not as much like the in the weeds part, but like what we're seeing this session.
Yeah, so I mean, one of them was this kind of ongoing dispute, ongoing tension between the Republicans and the legislature and the AG. But the other one is immigration. Immigration was a big issue last year. It continues to be a big issue this year because the bill that Republicans passed last year, House Bill 10, was all about making sure that local law enforcement was cooperating with ICE, with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ahead of what they were hoping for, anticipating a return of the Trump, a second Trump term. That's underway now. So now it's really all about making sure that there's cooperation at the state level too. State agencies are cooperating with ICE. There's a few other things in the bill that just passed the Senate recently, is now in the House. So that's one major bill that we're looking at. There's been a lot of concerns about that bill too. There have been advocates who have been protesting against it, rallying against it. I'll quickly mention one other thing. So there's that big Senate bill, which is Senate Bill 153, but there's also, the Speaker of the House, Destin Hall. He was the main proponent of House Bill 10 last year. He moved that bill forward. And there's been an issue that has come up specifically in Mecklenburg County, a dispute between the sheriff there, Gary McFadden, and ICE over the kind of in the weeds of how that cooperation actually works. So there's a new bill from Hall, this just filed last week, to address that issue too. So that's two big immigration bills.
So a lot of the themes that, as we're talking about already going on these past few weeks and this coming week is immigration, DEI, the whole state version of DOJ, which so far hasn't been firing people that have to do with nuclear weapons, like is done at the federal level, but people who are actually know what they're talking about as far as what maybe, as far as deciding where could you look at making government money being spent the right way. We should also mention that GovOps has been ongoing. There's another House Oversight Committee coming up this week on Thursday. The most recent GovOps was this past week on Thursday, focused on hurricane response, and really just a lot of frustrations that I heard from the lawmakers, especially Western NC lawmakers, about why aren't homes being rebuilt yet, and what can we do to make sure that this taxpayer money isn't, as the way Representative Brendan Jones described it, just, I don't know if we could say that on the radio, but gone away. I think we had it in the story, and not repeating that when it comes to the mountain. So you mentioned Hall. We need to talk about state of the state. We need our headliners. We're going to talk about Hampton Dellinger. We will be right back after a break.
AI is incredible. It can teach you how to fry an egg and even write a poem, pirate style. Yarr! But it knows nothing about your work. Slackbot is different. It doesn't just know the facts. It knows your schedule. It can turn a brainstorm into a brief. And it doesn't need to be taught. Because Slackbot isn't just another AI. It's AI that knows your work as well as you do. Visit slack.com/meet Slackbot to learn more.
Get in the game with the college-branded Venmo debit card. Wreck your team with every tap and earn up to 5% cash back with Venmo Stash, a new rewards program from Venmo. No monthly fee, no minimum balance, just school pride and spending power. Get in the game and sign up for the Venmo debit card at venmo.com/collegecard. The Venmo MasterCard is issued by the Bancorp Bank N.A. Select schools available. Venmo Stash terms and exclusions apply at venmo.me/stash terms. Max $100 cash back per month.
You're listening to Under the Dome. I'm Capitol Bureau Chief Dawn Vaughan here with Avi Bajpai and Kyle Ingram. Before the break, I'd mentioned the State of the State is coming up on Wednesday, and something's a little different this year. House Speaker Dustin Hall. So the House and Senate take turns. Last time, Robinson, who was Senate President Pro Tem, gave the response. It was pre-recorded. We probably, if Berger had done it, we would have expected that to be pre-recorded. Former Speaker Moore, when it was his turn to do the Republican response to Cooper's State of the State, it was pre-recorded. But I asked Hall what the plan was, and you can listen to what he told me in the gaggle on the House floor. So here's Dustin Hall.
Well, I don't know yet because, no, I'm not going to record it before. I'm going to do it after. I'm going to do it live, as Bill O'Reilly once said.
Okay.
Left out part of the quote from Bill O'Reilly. But, no, we'll see what the governor says, and I'm gonna do it live. I think that the people of the state deserve an actual response to it.
Yeah.
So we'll see what he says. I mean, I've got some idea of many of the things that he said before. I imagine he'll say, and we'll give a thorough, respectful response.
So I thought it was kind of interesting that he, how can you have a response that you don't know what you're responding to yet?
Yeah.
Right. So Hall and Governor Josh Stein aren't as adversarial as maybe some people thought, including myself.
In these initial days,
There's still plenty of time for animus to develop.
I would caution that we're in early days, but yeah, it is notable. It is very notable that instead of seeing kind of adversarial approach from the jump, and especially with the rhetoric, it's not that. It's not been the case, and it's going to be interesting to see Hall's response given live and right in the moment, reacting to what he hears from the governor.
So he hasn't decided exactly yet, and we are asking him, are you just going to do it? And so what it is, State of the State is at 7. There's a joint session that's called at 6, and the House is the biggest chamber, not just number of people, but physically. So that's 120 lawmakers. Then all 50 senators will come in, and they line up chairs in the aisles. And then Council of State comes, and the Supreme Court comes, and the Court of Appeals comes. So some people are in the gallery too, maybe more guests. And then press, we have limited seating. We're in the gallery. Our usual press corner is full of senators and judges and whoever else. But it's really a lot of ceremony, kind of what people might see if you watch the State of the Union, just to see how people interact. The governor walks in, and it's all of that kind of interaction. But whatever Governor Stein decides to make his pitch, I'm sure we'll hear about Helene. He'll have to touch somewhat maybe on national things versus state things, or maybe just state things. But Speaker Hall wants to wait and hear what Stein has to say, and then give his response. And it'll probably be somewhere else. I don't think as we record this on Friday afternoon, it's been nailed down where he'll do it. But we'll be there, and Avi and I are covering the speeches, and we'll bring you what you need to know about it, and then rehash it on the podcast next week. It's really going to just set the tone for the rest of session as far as how they are all going to interact.
Yeah, with the budget and with all of these other big legislative priorities with the big bills. I cover everything to do with immigration, and I'll be really curious to see how that features in on Wednesday night, whether we hear about that in both speeches, because Republicans are not wasting time to make it a big issue. I mean, the Senate Republicans who passed their bill, they are explicitly said that the reason they're acting on this issue requiring state agencies to cooperate with the Trump administration is because they say that the governor hasn't taken a clear stance on this issue. So it's going to be interesting to see what we hear about that.
Yeah, so Stein just won't be talking to Republicans, of course. He'll be talking about to Democrat. And those Democrats, he's, basically the leader of the state party for Democrats, the governor. And we'll see how that plays out, like wanting to sort of gin up more of their support. At the same time, he's in the room with Republicans who he has to work with, for his legacy. Kyle, what do you expecting will come from State of the State with both Stein and Hall? What are you looking for?
I'm just sort of interested to see what areas there are that neither side is really willing to clash with the other on at this moment. I mean, like we said, there hasn't been that much time for the relationship between Stein and the legislature to develop yet. Obviously, his predecessor, Governor Cooper, vetoed a record number of bills coming out of the Republican-dominated legislature. Stein hasn't had a chance to veto anything yet. So I'm wondering if either side is really taking a hardline partisan approach at this point, or if they're going to be looking for things that perhaps they can reach agreements on, like the budget, or perhaps immigration. We haven't heard a lot from Stein on what his stance is on that. So that's what I'll be interested in seeing.
Yeah, they're still feeling each other out, really, and we'll see. Of course, the constant is Senate Leader Berger. So, everyone is at that interaction of the people. You'll see those images from us and other media that we use time and time again, because there's not a lot of times where, Stein is talking to Speaker Hall and Berger, and of course, Lieutenant Governor Rachel Hunt will be there also. Kyle, let's stay with you. What is going on with Trump and Hampton Dellinger? Tell us what's up.
Yeah, so we've been trying. Obviously, there's so many new things coming out of this administration that are hard to keep track of, but we are interested in the things that touch on North Carolina. And there is this independent federal watchdog within the federal government called the Office of Special Counsel. Now, that's not to be confused with special counsels who prosecute, special cases in the federal government. But the special counsel in this office is from North Carolina. His name's Hampton Dellinger. He was an advisor to Governor Mike Easley. He ran for lieutenant governor here in 2008. And basically his role is to protect federal employees from retaliation if they do any sort of whistleblowing, and to enforce the Hatch Act, which restricts political activity by government employees. And really early into Trump's administration, he sought to fire Dellinger. But the federal law that creates the Office of Special Counsel says that you have to have a reason for firing this person, because they're supposed to be independent. You can't just remove them at will. But he didn't give a reason, and he just tried to oust him, and it set off this legal battle that had been going on for a few months. And if it had gone to the U.S. Supreme Court, it could have really been this interesting test of Trump's efforts to expand his executive power. But Dellinger announced last week that he's ending his battle. He's just going to accept it. And so we'll see who Trump replaces him with.
Okay. All right. We are almost out of time. Let's move on to our picks for headliner of the week. Avi, you can go first. Who or what is your headliner of the week?
I'm going to go with a story out of Charlotte from last week that raised some eyebrows about the Democrats there, the Mecklenburg County Democratic Party, spending upwards of just about $100,000 on their election night watch party last year. It seemed like it was a big event with guests of more than 1,200 people attending. So that's not a small event, but still that's a lot of money for an election night watch party. And it seems like if you go and read the reporting on that there are some pretty serious concerns among Democrats locally over there about, the
Why
best
they
way to spend
so
money.
much that, yeah. And this was this past November, he said, right?
Yeah.
So obviously the governor was in Raleigh, so he wasn't as far as like the who won of
The
their
Democrats obviously had the state Democrats had their main party in Raleigh as well. So
Okay. Before we run out of time, Kyle, what's your headliner?
Mine's a story out of ESPN, actually. We don't often expect them to touch on North Carolina politics, but last week
or to use the words Senate President Pro Tempore.
Yeah. But last week they had this really fascinating story about how the Bill Belichick hire came about at UNC Chapel Hill. And I won't spoil everything for you, but if you haven't seen it, it somehow involves Marco Rubio, Tom Tillis, and Phil Berger. All of them were responsible for this hire eventually happening. So go take a look at that.
The funniest line for me was that, Phil Berger, who has some connections with power players at UNC.
Famous
understatement of the century.
Yeah, for sure. All right. My headliner is, I've been holding on to this since Join a Probe started. Oh, yeah, there's more Join a Probes this week, so everyone get hyped for budget season. I have 6 years of covering the state budget. I'd never heard what the little summary is in the money report that describes what it is. It's called the Snappy, which is just so fun and great. And so maybe only fiscal research will like my headliner, but it's just fun. It sounds like a cartoon character, the Snappy. So that's my headliner.
I think that came up on the first day, the first Joint and Probes meetings, when the staff were just defining a lot of terms. Yeah. And I will say it's something that wakes you up when you're at those meetings at 8 in the morning.
Snappy. Yeah. I'm excited. All right. Well, we got more early probes again this week and for the foreseeable future. We are out of time. I'm Dawn Vaughan for Avi Bajpai, Kyle Ingram, producer Laura Brache. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
For more from our politics team, subscribe to the News and Observer at newsobserver.com/subscribe and sign up for our weekly political newsletter, also called Under the Dome, at newsobserver.com/newsletters. Thanks for listening.